Meeting recorded.
Get started. Thank you very much, and welcome to our latest Samsung talk. As you know, we like to do a wide variety of things. We've had AI and quantum computing and blockchain and light field display. Today we're going to have digital health and precision medicine. Precision medicine, is this notion that, in fact, our body is not all alike, and that better outcomes might be obtained if we had diagnoses and therapies that were more tailored to our distinct specs. And thing that can be very disruptive to the bureaucratic, monolithic, high-bound healthcare industry. And you would think that would be very daunting for startups, but we actually see a lot of startups popping up in this space. We think our own digital health initiative is sort of a startup. And you may remember last summer we had Aravel from Seattle speaking at this lunch, which was offering a sort of profiling and coaching service. And today we have PhenoMx from New York City, not genomics, but PhenoMx, which he will explain in a minute. It is indeed a scrappy startup. The founders, some of the founders came out of the Columbia University Biotechnology Entrepreneurship Program, and so from here in Berkeley. Actually, the Berkeley Law School has a venture boot camp called 500 Startups Project. And our speaker, Srinivasan, got his computer science master's degree at State University at Buffalo in New York, which is actually one of the first schools in the entire hemisphere that was established for medicine. It's over 170 years old. It started teaching medical science, which is just amazing to me. He then got his bioengineering degree, PhD in bioengineering and medical imaging at the University of Illinois, and had a great career at a number of imaging systems companies, Toshiba, General Electric, and as you may have read, he is also one of us. He used to be at Samsung. Some of you may know that in addition to the Samsungs we know, over in Korea there's a whole other Samsung that's in the medical imaging business, and he will explain that later. U.S. back east, and we're very fortunate to have him here. He was over in China last week trolling for opportunities, as scrappy startups do. And he stopped back in California because, again, I hope some of you know that the semi-annual Precision Medicine World Congress was actually right here in the Valley this week, down 237 in Mountain View. And so we're very fortunate that he was able to stay over an extra night so that today I can introduce for our Samsung talk Dr. Girish Srinivasan, an ex-Samsunger and Chief Technology Officer for PhenoMx Incorporated.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody well? That mic is okay? This on. It is coming on? Okay. So maybe. Well, okay. Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate that introduction. I think it's very nice to be back amongst the Samsung crowd. As you said, I was in South Korea from 2012 to 2016 in the HME, health and medical equipment business. Started very much at an early stage where I started building and decided to go into the medical device, and specifically the launcher of the medical devices. Start with the ultrasound company coming in to Samsung, the Medison, and Samsung built digital X-rays, CT systems, as well as MRI. And my role previously in Toshiba and GE was basically data acquisition, clinical applications, and processing. And I sort of scouted out to see if I can help Samsung build clinical roadmap for the MR and medical business. So very interesting road sort of pathway. started with creative clinical applications, went more into clinical research activities to prove out that these applications are actually indeed working. Did a lot of market surveys, a little bit even of actually hardcore marketing to go and establish this partnership. As you might already know, healthcare space is not like build and you release, usually a process. You really need to connect with your customers and sort of a lot of trials, establish yourself. And GE, Siemens, and Philips have had like 20, 30 years of experience in that. And obvious, as you might all know, Samsung thing has to happen now, happen right away. And that's what we set out to do. And it was a pretty impressive start. We actually built the first whole body CT system with all clinical applications, body premium MR system that was installed at the Samsung Medical Center. I was part of the running many clinical trials, and there was a little bit of a change in direction where some of the larger devices were put hold. I think I saw last RSNA that Samsung did come out with a smaller specialized MRI system. So that's the way Samsung changed course and changed path. Anyway, so going back, after I moved away from Samsung and came back to the US, started working with PhenoMx. So to talk to you about is give you a perception and an understanding of what your physical examination, health checkups could be in the future when we commercialize and deploy our solution. And that's the goal of being inside. So doctor visits, if you think about doctor visits, what are thoughts? Typically, and if you think through this, think about what are the thoughts, what are some of the feelings that you get when to go visit a doctor. I think general thoughts or more the questions fall under three major categories. You might recognize this from a competitor of Samsung, Apple. This is the business model they use. I'm not alluding to that in any way, but this is a set of questions that come up in your mind when you want to see a doctor. The why, the how, and the what. What I mean by that is why did what a situation is you want to go see the doctor? Why did this happen to me? As a doctor, are you going to really help me? And what is that it really future will behold after whatever the actions or the course corrections or the treatments that you have to do? How will that change my pathway? So I think the specific indication or maybe a general health checkup, these are some of the general thoughts you have when you go visit your doctor to say, can I get answers for some of these things? I was just sort of looking at this concept and thinking through this, and we did a lot of research on the internet before going to the doctor. And we basically sort of enough information. The information, like correct, half incorrect, and we don't exactly, we're confused. So finally, we end up at the doctor saying, I did a lot of research. I could not find out what I have. So here I am to help get your help. And in turn, doctors sort of come back. Typically, the doctor visits sort of end up having some template standard answers. I think that being, come in 3 months. Now everything looks fine, everything you're good. That means that a lot of things can go wrong to you. So that's where you keep that sort of continuous going process. Anyway, so I think there exists some sort of a dichotomy of sorts in the physical checkup, healthcare checkup world. That it's very important, it's necessary, and you want to do your periodic checkups. Now, there's the other camp. This article published in New York Times in 2015 that your general health checkups is completely meaningless, and it's just adding some unnecessary information, adding cost. It's not providing any value. So, by the end of this talk, I hope I can convince most of you, if not all, that actually being on this side is helpful. But the delivery and how it comes out to individuals and patients may not be so conducive today way, and that's what we have set off to change. We want to provide mechanisms of digital health screening and physical examinations that are really valuable, meaningful, and give you some insights that help live long and a good life. So I want to start off with a story of an individual that I had acquaintance with. We're going to go back to 2008, which, by the way, I just realized that it's almost a decade ago, and I was just last minute looking at it, and I was like, I should probably mention that we're already a decade into that. But anyway, in 2008, this incident, there was this lady about 40 years of age, and she started experiencing chest pain. And concern that persisted, and so obviously she wanted to go and visit her doctor. And based on general conditioning, understanding a little bit about our history, also a model that is based out of a 1,000-patient data set published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1979, the doctor concluded that this was a typical case of an angina. So the next immediate step of action is to go ahead and take a stress EKG. So that's what she did her stress EKG, and the EKG results turned out to be positive because of a ST segment elevation in EKG. Obviously, a lot of concern. The question is, what do you do next? The standard procedure is to go ahead and do occlusive diagnosis by invasive catheter angiogram. It's a procedure. It's still not a complex sort of surgery, but still it's invasive. She was admitted. She did. The procedure was done. Images were created, and it turned out that she had pristine, clean arteries, no blockages, none whatsoever. So right now, but it's a little bit of puzzling. It's like what happened there, which she's gone through an invasive procedure, and results are very doubtless to see why did she have the chest pain. Well, she's released with some general, maybe it's gastric, so given some mild antacids and stuff like that, went back, fine, no problem. During all these procedures, though, there was really no question of what's her routine life, what's her value, and none of that was specifically asked out. Very recently, she started developing this chest pains again, and she's like older, the concern, and obviously she goes to the doctor and is trying to find out, hey, I had this history, we did all these procedures, and I'm having this again. Nothing was found at that time about now what's going on. If one were with the same model that was used in 1979, she would be at a 79% risk of a cardiovascular event, a coronary artery disease. But fortunately, with all the advancements and some of the newer models and predictions that have come out, is one with basically using about 18 different cohort data sets, about 6,000 patients, bunch of different other parameters input into this. The model actually gave out the result that her probability of a coronary artery disease was about 12%. Significantly reduced, but still high enough because it's a life or death event here. So now, to clarify this, she went to do a coronary CT angiogram. Much better the last time, which was invasive. This is non-invasive. There is radiation, but still there's not much of physical or hospitalization and stuff like that. Some scores that came out of this test, probability of cardiovascular disease was 3%. She was with it, slight chance, but she was happy to say, okay, I'm continuing. There's really nothing wrong with it. Again, in this procedure, not too much of information about her routine life, her values, and any of those things. And unfortunately, this cardiovascular CT test still not the standards today. A personal experience of mine, my father-in-law, he was having to go through an invasive procedure to make a conclusive rule out of the cardiovascular event. So this is available, and I think this is more to do with the insurances, reimbursements, and stuff like that. CT is not the method of first choice, in the US at least. And I asked some of my connections in Korea, they would go for CT right off the first batch. So there are differences here. Great. Now, some of you in digital health, a lot of sort of happening here with all the interesting continuous monitoring. So let's fast forward 10 years from now and see what if the same lady had the same situation and what she would have to go through. So in the continuous monitoring, let's take the situation. You're having all these wearables, continuous monitoring devices, and I'm telling you, you're having very little exercise. You're testing heart rate, high variability. You're not so healthy, too much animal fat maybe, and have excessive stress because of work. Maybe familiar with a lot of us here, actually. So with all this information, this is going to tell you, you need to take a little more precaution, take some more tests to you a little more better information. So you put your blood drop in a home device that's actually starting to be available even as of today, and feed that information to an mHealth app. I'm sure you all know about it. You've been creating it. And it gives you information about your HDL, LDL, glucose, and all of that together. And with the analysis from the mobile health app, with a database that is actually like 20 million individuals, and this actually cohort study exists as of today, you can get a pretty accurate predictive model that can give you your course of action. And if it turns that your risk is high, you portal, schedule scan, and the scans will be fully automated and robotic, where you can get your scan and immediately your images are out right on your phone or on your personal device. You get that image to a reverse image search engine, by the way, again, exists as of today. And you can, based on all the population level analysis and the data that's available, you can actually create a very precise result about how you're going to turn out and what's your health status. That is sort of the vision, and probably I would even say a reality in the very near future that's going to happen. So what does this mean? What does it mean for all your health? How is this possible, and what are the things that are that's coming in as you look through all these things? We're looking at family history information. We're talking about DNA, genetic sequencing, all those information that comes with the family history. We're having screening tools, some of which I'm going to discuss in more detail, specifically what my company is doing to analyze, to continuously find out and triage patients in a much better way. You have targeted interventions and therapy mechanisms that will sort of help you to focus and specifically alleviate some of the problems. And while doing all of this, you're continuously monitoring and tracking any of this. This for information, and this is what I would call as precision health. So, this sort of a scenario and picture, and the reason why all this actually is visible today, precision healthcare is becoming a reality. There is streams of data that's becoming available. Channelize that into a big data lake. You pass it through the computational power and the analytics that's available today, and stream out informative insights and data insights that's coming out. That's becoming the place where we are in today. And the precision medicine it's actually not a single time point or even a shared set of time points. It's actually a continuous process. And we can actually do this all the way from time of family planning, where today we're looking at fertility clinics, DNAs, to see what your baby and what your sort of potential children will sort of have and might have. Do a first-line baseline genetic examination to find out the baby sort of makeup. And then through the process of the life cycle of growth, adolescence, and elderly, as you grow into your old age, you actually continuously start monitoring and find out to see how you're going to turn out. I'm about trying to live more than the current sort of record of 122 or something like that. We're trying to push that limit, and I think we can into more of the 150s and stuff like that. And kind of my interest to live to the 150. So that's my sort of goal here. Diagnostic space, this is where it starts to tie into specifically what I'm doing. Two aspects of the delivery, and as I said, there is one which is the genomic part of it, and the other one I would call the radiomic, or more, I would say it's the phenotype or the phenomic part. Let me quickly give you a little bit of information of, I'm sure you would have heard a lot about genotypes and genotyping. The phenomics is actually, phenotyping is more of a continuous behavioral monitoring. This is, you have a genome, you have a predisposition to certain things, but then that changes, and if you have a specific gene type, it does not mean that you're going to have a specific sort of outcome. So the one gene is known to be indicative of maybe breast cancer, but not all people who have the BRCA gene do get the breast cancer. So there are many instances like this, and that's where phenotyping comes in. Phenotyping is telling you your interaction with your environment, your lifestyle, the food you take, and you get sort of information about the behavioral aspect. That's what is phenotype. And when you combine this together from the clinical, medical, diagnostic perspective, you derive precision medicine. And there are starting to be centers today that are offering this as a service. Precision medicine centers, concierge medicine centers, and they are giving you this sort of clubbed information to help you sort of understand yourself better. And I put this while I was in Samsung with a vision and interest of combining the health piece of it and the medical side of HME to see how is there a collaboration. And still the vision here where we want to build an ecosystem, sort of a real ecosystem for health, which shouldn't be in the middle. And here, so that's the representation. We have a lot of variables and monitoring solutions. Part of it will have the diagnostic solutions, the diagnostic devices, existing current solutions, all of their Samsung's devices, by the way. Some future ones which we might create pretty soon. And on the other side, you have like an infrastructure, an IT infrastructure with a cloud solution, data storage, health repository, connection to doctors, some intelligent algorithms that do your processing. And these sort of come and play together. You really have a big data composition, real-time data correlation and analysis, and a personalized outcome that can be measured. As we checked out in terms of specific talking about genotype and phenotype, is sort of, as you see here, there is a lot of companies, and you've definitely heard of 23andMe, that's actually doing, I know they've had some challenges now, many companies coming up, even in the Precision Medicine World Congress that I attended in the last 3 days, an outbreak of many companies doing genome sequencing, biome, proteomics, metabolomics, and all the omics sort of coming together. Very interesting sort of growth here. Of course, there's a set of companies that are doing AI, image algorithms, and processing of images using AI solutions, and this is sort of growing. And then there is this phenotype and the phenome zone. There is an interest. There are some companies which are starting to provide this. One which is notable is the human longevity. Chris Wentner, one of our senior scientists and a pretty well-known brand by himself, has created this brick-and-mortar store in a place in San Diego where for $20,000 you can go get a 2-week test, which is battery of genome to image to everything, and you get a 50-page report. Talk to a few folks who have done that. Oh, not after having spent $25,000 because it's not actionable. You get a bunch of different information here. So we want to try to change that. We want to see if we can bring that from the 25,000 to something which we all can use. Use infrastructures there. We want to go to an imaging center that's nearby to us, not to San Diego every time to get the scan. See, that's where sort of we can just realize. So Phoenix, going into that specific sort of company here, is personalized digital physical examination. And we want to create this so that we can know about ourselves, we can prevent our diseases, and we actually extend our lives. As I said, 150 is my target, and that's what I want to go for. So how to do it is we're going to use imaging here. Again, that's an expertise that I have, and my co-founders were 20 years of clinical trials and other expertise. So imaging, we believe, has a strong potential to give and tease out this information that is very specific and can give you the phenotype information. So acquisition of images using MR and CT. Right now, we're based off MR. We do the processing. We do predictive analytics. and precision sort of outcome. So quick kind of what the traditional current workflow, and I've seen this a lot in working with Samsung, this and the to-be slides. So sort of a philosophy that I've seen a lot. I believe, at least in the HME, we used to say, can you get the assist and the to-be slides? And that's sort of how is it. And so this is the traditional. A patient comes in, he's referred an imaging. Imaging gets acquired, image is sent to the radiologist, and he or she analyzes it and creates the report. Very qualitative. The analysis is manual. There is limitations. There is endless sort of limitations in the sense that, for example, China, over only 2,000 radiologists. When you think about it, right? I mean, I think 2,000 radiologists with such a big population doesn't add up, doesn't match up at all. So that's why we're sort of having a problem in this scenario. What we're trying to introduce is this cycle to increase the time, but to expedite and augment this process. We bring these images outside, get curated processing engine that creates not the qualitative regular images, but quantitative biomarkers that are teased out of these images and feed it back into their system. So now they not only have these qualitative images in sort of right next to it are additional sort of very precise, very informative reports, outcomes, where you can really say, yes, this makes sense. This is your diagnostics. Process does not take time. It's actually a lot of it today that we do is fairly automated. And within, like, in some instances, we can actually feed this report inside. So you're only limited by how fast can you acquire here, limited by the amount of time you want to spend. So just make sure that the physicians, the clinicians do work, but actually spend time understanding the patients much better. That's the goal of this. Here is a small cartoon of what it looks like. Get the scan, pass into this sort of engine, create this whole body sort of predictive quantitative maps that is sort of useful. And this is just a small sort of cartoon of the workflow here. So in terms of the pipeline of the actual disease indications and what we can actually provide, right, we have 5 different modules that sort of relate to different anatomical regions. And there is this body composition that basically gives you information about your makeup of the body. You get your head-to-toe scan, like the one I just showed you in the previous slide, and you look at your distribution of your fat, tissue, muscle aspects, bone distribution, and all that sort of put together in a 3-dimensional format to be able to help diagnose obesity, metabolic disease, and diabetes and stuff like that. We can, in spine module, we can look at potential early markers of dementia, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease. The cardiovascular module that actually looks at processing, teases out, doing segmentations of your heart valve and stuff, and you're beating actually live real-time demonstrations and understand about potential infarcts and blockages and some of those aspects. There is liver, looking at potential fat depositions, alcoholic, non-alcoholic hepatitis, and leading to more cirrhosis and liver cancer. We also image your joints to be able to see your cartilage thickness, how your degradation is, leading to osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. So this package is more, it can be done independently, but that's because the reason of designing this modular is because today, getting a full body MR scan is still a challenge. I mean, it is time consuming. You have a 1-hour sort of window. We're trying to reduce that to pick protocols to do it in less than 30 minutes, but the option is still a small barrier for us to go through. So the modular where we can say, okay, if you need just a brain scan, a liver scan, or a joint scan, we can do it and slowly sort of convince them that move towards more of the whole body sort of composition and be able to get a better picture holistically. So it comes, and basically what it is it's target for patients, definitely faster. We're trying to do it faster as possible, less expensive, non-invasive, and specifically using MR. It's not radiation. we're talking about non-ionizing way to get this data. Physicians, they can act on it, they can look at it. There is quantitative information, so it's very informative for them. And then you have the administrative and the payer side, which hopefully we can influence by the way of reducing the cost by sizing a lot of these things and helping as more of a population health. You can actually see that other side of it can also be benefited out of that. So our role is actually right now B to B to C. We're starting with sort of clinical trials, precision medicine centers, as I said. Right now have a couple of potential clients we're starting to go into execute as pilots pretty soon. We want to go into standard regular imaging facilities and actually produce these imaging markers any place, and any imaging clinic rather than more specialized centers, and eventually going to consumers and be able to say, here's your quantified self. Here's executive sort of an physical examination. So our revenue right now is pay for use. As I said, it's modular, so we can actually do it on a per scan basis, per anatomy basis, and sort of put together the pipeline. We're starting to work on customized data reporting, where think about, let's say you get a scan information on your hand, on your mobile phones, on your tablets, 3D, on a VR glass, and be able to understand pretty much the entire picture of yourself. We're to talk with some companies who are pretty neat ideas to do that, and be able to say, not just your clinician, but you yourself can really understand this information by yourself. So it's a pretty large market. Again, I'm not too much business side. I'm more on the technical aspect. Got this information from my CEO. Large market covering a lot of different areas. So it's pretty interesting even from a business perspective as well. So we've already established certain partnerships. Details, as I said, a lot of clinical trials and research background. I have some technical partners who are giving some platform information. We're partnering with certain outside of this modules. If you want a lung, we do have partners that can provide that sort of quantified information about your lung and other areas as well. And International Precision Medicine Center is one of our first clients in Korea, where an entire city is being created more from a digital city perspective. We want to say individuals can go in, get all these sort of battery of tests together and be able to help them sort of serve that. And that is an effort that is sort of have been going on for a year now, and the first pilot is sort of beginning in a month from now. So that's the initial project scenario. That's what I said, the healthcare city. This is in Korea. Also a thought about doing a corporate pilot. Trying to partner with, I think the Precision Medicine Center is trying to partner with actually a couple of large companies you have heard, again, based out of Korea, CJ, POSCO, where you actually, we're trying to offer a more of an executive physical. So some of the people can get a more detailed examination. We can't do this today. Like in Korea, it is mandate. We have to, all of us, and while I was there, every year, get a checkup. We included not just your blood consumption, it did include scans. I could do cardiac scan, and there was reports. And I was just telling earlier, based on all the report, they said I'm obese. And I am, but compared to the population of Korean, certainly I am obese. So I think the comparison maybe does not make sense. We have to be triaged to my ethnic origin, my lifestyle, and what I am. And that's where the behavioral aspect of it comes in. An initiative in China pretty soon, very similar as such, more population health, looking at about 100,000 households in the first year. And there is also some specialized efforts, and this is again sort of looking at how we can help dementia, spot dementia as early as possible. So it's sort of a moonshot idea. Significant evidences that the brain imaging that I showed has potential to diagnose and be able to triage dementia maybe 10 to 15 years ahead of actually the onset of the disease. What I want to end with is from the standard, typical examinations that are just really procedural, more something that is informative, that's meaningful, motivated that you can take back with yourself under so better, live one free, whatever your target is, let's do that. Thank you. Question.
I was just thinking about your business model, and most imaging clinics, well, I think all imaging clinics in the U.S. need a referral.
Yes.
So, do you have doctors on staff that actually, write that prescription or whatever it is to send them to?
Right. So, in the clinical trials in the research setting, we're plugging into IRBs,
which are for us non-medical people, IRB.
It's an institutional review board.
Okay.
It's a part of the clinical trial. There is a consent and there is a procedure saying that we will enroll, say, 100,000 or 10,000 people in a kind set of tests that we'll do. They're all approved. And as long as the patient or the individuals meet an inclusion criterion or an exclusion criterion triaged out of that, they part of the study.
Okay. But what happens when this is part of a performance medical center? I'm just on the street and I want to have it done.
Very good question. So I think today you still have to go to your primary care physician and say, I want to get a scan done, which I don't think it's possible in the US. Yeah. Seems it is possible outside of here. And that's the reason we've set outside to sort of start the process. And we think that these precision medicine centers and the concierge clinics get to a level, which is sort of the idea here. You go to a mall, there will be a facility where you can get your scan done. Go shopping, by the time back, you have your reports on your hand. So that's the vision there.
Thank you.
On MRI, because it's a very expensive modality, and specifically in the United States, where it's probably like 4 or 5 times more expensive than in other parts of the world.
Sure.
So it has some limitations also we talked about resolution and other things.
Absolutely.
So are you considering also to add other image modalities to what you're doing?
Absolutely.
Going forward?
Very, very, very much so. Actually, some of our partners are already doing CT-based solutions, which are definitely more accessible, more prevalent. CT is more of an existing modality. We're looking at some potential options of helping ultrasound as well, which is much more point care, actually being able to be available. The interest about MR is, again, there's a lot of information that comes out, specifically to look at your body and give a very holistic view of it, non-incidental findings. And some of these things, MR is just phenomenal in terms of how it gives out that information. Hopefully, we'll all have personal MRI devices soon that we can scan ourselves and get it. But again, that's out there. But I think that's an interest, and development's going. And I was just talking a little before, Stanford, Harvard Medical have all come out with more tabletop devices. Even Samsung last year, as I said, released a specialty MR, which is of the size of maybe this table and maybe 4 feet tall. It's the comparison analog is you have a shiatsu massage kind of chair. You sit down it and you put your hand in. It's not whole body yet, but I mean it's still the footprint is getting smaller. And there's a lot going on, brain-only systems. So some of these specialty, and when you sort of put them modularly, maybe you can get a whole body exam by, instead of sitting in this like banging system that's like an hour long, you probably can do it away with smaller systems. And I think definitely pathway to that is use other modality examinations. MR, a lot of background, a lot of experience, and that's why we started off with that. And we'll hopefully sort of get there to the point. Very, very valid point there. Thanks. Any other questions?
So your service starts from after the MRI is taken, right after. To change the current setup, you're trying to get better results and better analytics.
Yes, a little bit. And the reason for the no is actually when we went into some of these places, we said, okay, we'll offer you this processing service. they really did not have a clue of how do you go at the earlier part. So fortunately, again, back to the clinical research experience and some of that, we're now acting as advisors to these precision medicine centers to really set up what is your protocol, acquisition protocol. We'll give like a 5 to 10 minute protocol in each anatomical region. And we'll see all the images that you acquire. Again, our platform is clinical platform, a lot of QC sort of necessities. So with that infrastructure, so we QC that and then charge this into our processing infrastructure. So there is a lot of upfront work that is happening right now, and it's absolutely required. And because to be able to get the right outcome and tease it out, we need specific protocols. Protocols. It's not something that we have specifically designed. It's clinical standard routine protocols. That some parameters, some of the knowledge and education needs to be done upfront. Yeah. Anyone else? Sure.
One more question. So it's a fascinating field, but so if you want to get into that field and you decide to go to university right now, areas would you go and study? Would you? There's computational biology, there's bioengineering, there's computer science, and all of that. So how would you address it if you want to get into it and learn it?
I would invest a lifetime just studying, actually. I really felt it when I attended this conference, and to specifically point out the word that you said, computational biology and computational care is a new interesting technology that I heard. But computational biology is where a lot of the mechanics and modeling of functioning of the human body, to understand it from a very integral part of it, is that study. And all the genome work and some of the sequencing work is coming out of that. And computational care is more closer to, I think, what we're trying to provide, where it's more using technology to better understand so that it can provide this care of information. If you map that out to specific fields that are available today, I'm a little outdated. I've come out of school for quite a long time, but buying does fit the overall scenario, covering both ends. You can way from one side to the science side of it, to the engineering side of it. It's possible. I actually personally wanted to become a neurosurgeon. Didn't happen. Don't come to me for that. But basically, there's a lot of intermixing of fields, a huge collaboration of fields, and it cannot be done by individual companies, individuals. So partnership is the biggest key here. And step-wise, would sort of, if you ask me one, biomedical engineering is what I would say.
Question. Since we're in the group here, I'm curious on the computational and sort of data center requirements of something like PhenoMx is doing. I know when you have the images, people worry about scanning and caching and so forth. What sorts of challenges and interesting things is PhenoMx running into in that space?
So the biggest challenge...
Sidebar of your thing where you go over into you and then back into the loop.
Okay. No, I think a lot of the current infrastructure that's available in hospitals, the protocols that are used to do transfers of these things are quite standardized as of now. So for example, imaging DOM is a universal standard across all modalities to be able to transfer that information. And they are standardized tags. And the challenge there is each manufacturer adds a little extra personalized information tag to the ICOM, makes it a little bit more difficult to size it across. But for the most parts of it, you can actually pass information from one place to another and be able to easily read it. We are vendor neutral, we are sort of platform neutral, so we can certainly do that. That's one. Space, I think, yes, Samsung knows it best. You have miniaturized like petabytes and terabytes of information to really small sort of structures. So putting the cloud is starting to be not a problem. The problem is more of security. And how do you, most of the hospitals and the infrastructure don't want the data sets to go out of the hospital boundaries. And going back to China, they were a little more lenient, but they wanted it to remain within China's boundaries. That's a challenge. So we'll have to replicate the setup in specific locations, specific countries, and be able to sort of scale it that way. But that how to draw global conclusions, the data to build analytical models that are more generic. And for then we'll have to say, okay, have an office in China and do it out there. Have an office in Korea and do it out there. So those are some practical challenges to be able to adopt and scale it specifically to that. And last thing I want to mention is in terms of security. Of course, I'm hearing about owning data and using blockchain and blockchain as a mechanism of transactional pieces where I will share my healthcare data for a Bitcoin that you can give me. Again, I'm not an expert. I have no idea much about this field. I've been hearing a lot from many experts that have been saying this, to pick up some of those to see how and if we incorporate that in any form at whatever timeline that we need to be sort of having that. So infrastructure-wise, right now, because the mechanisms of transfer seem to be okay. We're able to sort of handle that. We can do the processing, give the results. How does it scale is a question that needs to be answered.
Anything else? So I'm not going to queue up, but our little gift that we hand out is a tiny little bit of memory, relative to what you need. But awesome. One of our T5s is the latest. Please again thank Dr. Srinivasan for stopping by today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.